Well, it's about 10:30, so we'll get started. As I warned the people that came in early, we're doing a flip presentation, so we're going to have you guys present and we'll make comments.
I'm not prepared.
My name is Chris Bombardo. I'm Director of Technology at University of Tennessee College of Law. What we wanted to do here is we have a lot of projects that we do, a lot of stuff that we show and stuff in the past, and, but we never tell how do we get there to work with the faculty for them to trust us to do it. You know, how do we see the problems, how do we identify, how do we kind of introduce stuff to get support to do it. You know, it's not easy saying to the dean, give me money or give me time to do work on a project that we don't know if it's going to work or not. That it's a trial basis. So we kind of want to walk through our process and how we do that and how we interject ourselves into the teaching and stuff like that. So we're not just a PC repair shop. We actually want to be involved with the departments, involved with the faculty, where we get to do a little bit of everything. And we want to build up a trust relationship because they come to us too. So we want to kind of talk about the steps that we do to get to that point, how we introduce stuff, how we find the issues, how we identify inefficiencies, get buy-in and trust, how we determine purchase or build because we have resources, and how we do our time management, and kind of go through all them little steps with you and get some feedback of what you guys do. We'll mainly talk about our environment because we're doing the presentation, but at any time, if you do different or anything, fill in, let us know, and we'll talk about why we specifically do it.
My name is Jamie Wilson. I primarily do web development at the University of Tennessee. I get involved a lot with some of the other projects. I work with Chris a lot and also work with the Director of Communications when it comes to some of the external web things. But primarily that's what I do.
So the first thing we're going to start out with is identifying the problem. How do we decide when technology is an issue? Or we could put ourselves in that situation to maybe solve some inefficiencies in the lawsuit. So I think there's two methods.
The first step is that you actually have to understand the actual need and define it in a way that you can actually measure it. You can't really claim success or know that you fit the actual goal until you understand that. And you have to have that communication with the interested parties. If we have a faculty member that comes to us and says, hey, I want an electronic schedule, if we just run with that, we may create this giant electronic board that sits outside of the classroom when in fact they just wanted maybe a web-based calendar or some push notifications or things like that. So it's very important to understand what those expectations are and what the actual need is. And
I think this is what we're doing is, the first way is to identify an issue. So you don't have the technology yet, you're done identifying what the issue is. So I think this is the identify the issue approach.
Yeah, and then once we understand that problem, then we can start looking at technologies. What do we have that can fit this? What technologies might be for to fit the specific need? One good example is we worked on a video system. It was one of our more complex systems. And the way it worked is our negotiations classes are required to go in, basically record themselves so that they can be reviewed by the professor. So the process was they would actually have to check out a camera. They have to go check out a camera, go find a classroom or a study room, set the thing up, record themselves, take that video, put it on a USB drive, take that to the professor. The professor then looks at the video on there, makes comments, gives a USB drive back to the student, and it goes from there. What we have now is using some different technologies, a combination of web, Arduino boards, cameras, IP cameras. But what they do now is they walk into a study room, see the equipment there, they swipe their ID card through their card reader, it authenticates them. They use a touchpad that we created they put in how many minutes they need, starts recording, they can add minutes, they can stop the recording. It instantly saves that file as an MP4 file, sends them an email saying your file is now available, your video is now available for review. They can then give permission to the professor, to other students, the entire class, however they want to do it. They watch the video online, and then other students and the professor can make comments in real time that will sync up with that video. So when it replays, the comments pop up and things like that. And so we ended up saving a lot of time, make it very, very efficient for the students. It's instantly available to everyone. So that was one need. Another one that was a little bit more simpler is the anonymous grading numbers. The old process was that the records office would actually print up a list of anonymous numbers for the students. They would physically cut them out, paste them to index cards, and then go to each of the students' inboxes and put them in there, and that was their anonymous numbers for the year. So not only was that a tough inefficient process, but a lot of students would end up forgetting the numbers, and they have to go back and get the numbers, the correct numbers, the incorrect numbers, things like that. We were able to turn that into a web-based system where they basically log into their account, they have their numbers right there, and they can always go back and refer to them. So we're able to get rid of that sneaker net approach and automate it a lot more.
Is anybody still printing anonymous numbers or getting pieces of paper? Mm-hmm. So we still have paper. So and one of the benefits of when we changed that now is when they forget it, they just log in and get it right before the exam or whatever. So the amount of made-up numbers have substantially dropped, which is nice for the registrar's office or whoever's sorting exams. Another way that we kind of identify issues is not necessarily seeing the issue first. A lot of times we stay up on technology, so we read a lot, constantly see what new tools are out there and stuff like that. We have the resources to kind of look at that because we have background in programming and stuff. So, or in just programs coming out. And so what we do is when a new technology comes up, we compare it to issues that we have. Does it solve something better or more efficient than what we did before? And we can go back to the web, the video project is one that we're looking at now is currently with the comments, if somebody makes a comment, the person, if they're watching it simultaneously, they don't see the comment until they restart the video, the other person. So now that WebSockets is up, we look at this technology and say, we could use this to instantly push that comment to anybody who's watching that video at the same time. So now we can make it really instantaneous, even if they're watching at the same time. It could almost be a chat session inside the video while storing that. So the second way, the difference is, one, we identify the issue and then put technology on the issue. The other thing is we identify new technology and then look what issues that, or inefficiencies that we can solve. So pretty much for all our problems, we start out with one of those two ways. Issue first or technology on top of an issue. And it's amazing how little simple things you can make more efficient by just exploring what options are all out there. And I think that's what this conference does. It kind of opens up what other schools are doing, and you can look at these technologies, take them back, and apply them to your problems or inefficiencies within the law school.
One of the things we found too is not every big problem actually requires a big technological solution. Sometimes a simple technology solution actually solves a really big problem and takes care of a lot of really big inefficiencies.
So we're going to start with the process. How do we do this? What do we do once we identify the problem? The biggest thing I think is, how do you get buy-in? How do you get your faculty to say, yeah, I'll try this with you, or how do you get the money to support it and stuff like that? I think if you want to start.
Yeah, one of them, I mean, is showing a successful track record. Obviously that includes having a history of things where you've had successes and you show that you're competent in those areas. But it's also a willingness that when there is a failure, when you can't meet the need or something goes wrong, that you take ownership of it, you address it, and then you offer solutions of how we're going to work around this. I think that builds up the trust. You have to work really closely with the interested parties, whether it's a non-technical faculty member or staff member. It's very important to have their input right from the beginning and throughout the process, because their influence and their input is very essential. I mean, when it comes down to it, your success of a project or a product that you're producing, it really depends on whether or not you meet the needs of the people that are requesting it and the people that are actually using it. It also gives them a feeling of contribution to the final product, and that gives you really good allies when it comes to future projects, because you have that enthusiasm from the people that are benefiting most from it.
One of my big things is we never say no. Even if it's the biggest request there is and we know we can't do it, what we do is explain what we would need to do that and let them come to the conclusion that it may not be possible, or let them make the argument to the dean or whoever that we would need these additional resources, whether it be more manpower, more money, or whatever. So I don't ever want to say no to a faculty. I would tell them that we may not be able to do this right now, and this is why. If we can solve these issues, then we can get to that point and take on that project. So, and the other thing is, before we go to that, we always look, what are the alternatives? Is there something that we could put in place that would get them most of the way there, and we'll present them? We don't say, here, we can do this. We say, these are other options. So the idea is to make them make a decision, whether it is to get the resources, whether it is to make the decision to drop the project or go forward with it. We try to put it on the client, or faculty, or staff, or whoever is students, to make the decision, and not necessarily we tell them if we can't do it. We tell them what we need to do it, and let them make that decision.
Yeah, sometimes it's a matter of kind of leading them where you want them to go. Sometimes you have non-technical people that further out really cool technology, or they think they know what they want, and as a technical professional, you often have a better idea of what's needed, but you kind of want to lead them to a point where they kind of feel like it was their decision. You want to lead them gently to that point. At least that's our approach in many cases. And kind of playing some mental Aikido there. You're kind of redirecting them, and like I said, just kind of leading them to a better solution so that they feel like they really have a part of that.
So, and one of the tricks we often use with our faculty, when we work with faculty, is students. Students can often drive faculty a lot better than what we can. So when we did the video project, not all faculty got onto the thing. They wanted to do it the old method because that's what they're used to. We said, fine, pick how you want to do it. That's your decision how you're going to do it. But what we did is show their students how much more efficient the other students were doing it. And it was the students that pushed the faculty, all the faculty, to get buy-in. So we never try to force faculty to do anything. We always try to keep their methods the same and introduce technology that just makes their method more efficient. Or we have the students push it onto the faculty. So I would say the majority of the time, if we don't have faculty buy-in, we don't push it, we make our small argument, we have students or other faculty push it for us. That does a couple of things. It makes it for the faculty that does do that change, they don't feel like we forced them to do that change, so they'll come back to us. We're not looked at as the bad guy. And even if it fails, we're still not, we kind of protect ourselves a little bit. We're not looking at the bad guy. We can go back and say, yeah, we tried it. We didn't force you to do it. You tried it for your students. It didn't work out. We can move on and go on. So we try to never force anybody to do anything if it's not fun. We don't have no mandates. They have to use this semester or anything like that. We always try to do it by their decision, by using other peer pressures to make that decision. It kind of goes back to never say no. Always use other people's weight to get your decision and get your conclusion at the end. One of the big things we always do, we are a build shop. That's what we do. We program, we write a lot of stuff. We like to be creative. One thing I like to do is always have a fun project people work on and stuff like that may not deal with anything with the law school, but it's something to get their mind out and explore stuff and keep their ideas going. So we always get asked, build versus purchase. And for us, it's often an easy decision, but what we do when we do that, and this is how we approach it. First is cost. Cost is the biggest thing. But there's also cost for us. Our time costs a lot. It costs the university a lot to pay us, and it moves us from other things. So we always have to take our time into consideration, which I think is often missed with people that build, because they're like, well, I'm free, I'm already here. But if I'm building something, I'm not doing something else. So we always have to take the cost of time and the resources into consideration when we do that.
Yeah, and the resources include everything from physical assets, money obviously, which Chris talked on, people, time, skills, your experience. Sure, we may have 2 developers that are available, but can we dedicate 80% of our time for the next 6 weeks on this particular project, and is it worth it? Also, are there things that we're, new areas that we're still learning ourselves? Like, do we have the time to actually catch up on them before we actually try to do this project? So those are things we have to decide when we're looking at purchase versus build.
And in addition to that is long-term support. So we don't just build it and then turn it over and it's done. In a year, they're going to want changes, or that program now that we were comparing to can do this or do that. So when we weigh it, we have to consider this project is going to continue past that initial build. We're going to have to support it. We're going to have to continue to update it. We're going to have to continue to add features to it. So it's a lot more just saying we have a developer, we can do that. There's cost factors, resources. But often what it comes down to is, what we think is, we know our faculty, we know our students, we know our staff. We can write a better user interface. And I think that's one of the big things, we can write it for them. Did you want to tell them user interface?
Yeah, I mean, user experience is going to make or break a product. You can make an amazing product, but if the users hate it, if the interface is wonky, if it works against what they're comfortable with, then you've kind of failed. So when possible, we try to adapt the technology to how the users work instead of expecting them to adapt their work to how we've made the technology. And that's not always the case. There are times when their processes are so bad or so inefficient that we have to kind of lead them to new things. We have to do it very gently because people do not like change, especially non-technical people, and I'm sure I don't have to explain that to anybody here. But one of the examples of how we've adapted to make the user interface work with our users better is our video app. Going back to that again, there were also alternatives out there. Panopto, Manihorn were two of the ones that we looked at, but they didn't really fit the experience of what we needed for our users. So we built it simple. They play a video, they pause it, they comment, they save, they continue, and it just goes through that process. We also matched the style of the comments to kind of match like instant messaging, text messaging. It has that very iPhone kind of feel to it, which encourages more students to just comment, be helpful, things like that. So we built a product that works best for our users, even though there were alternatives out there that were more complex and just wouldn't have solved the need that we actually needed.
I think some of them had more than what we actually needed, and we didn't need those features, so we didn't want those features. It just causes more confusion. It's not always best to have all the features.
Another option is another example is that we have a calendaring system that we were trying to consolidate all these different calendars into one system is the goal. We have information boards that have slides that come up at different times. They're scheduled. You know, we have, everybody has their own calendar. There's class schedules. There's a million different schedules. We wanted to bring it together in one calendar. But we had this small group of holdouts that had this calendaring system that they absolutely loved. It was a terrible calendar, or is a terrible calendar, but they were absolutely adamant about not giving this calendar up for anything. So we went back and forth for quite a while and how to convince them to use this new system. We kind of decided the best way is we'll just go scrape the data off their calendar so they can continue to use that calendar. Just behind the scenes, we're grabbing everything we need off of that calendar so they can continue to do it the way they wanted to.
So we still got to move to this unified calendar system, but they still get to use what they like, what they're comfortable with. And over time, we hope to be able to make that change slowly with them. So who has the time to do all this? You guys have time to start looking, inventing, and everything else. And I think time is probably one of the hardest things because positions are getting cut or they're not getting filled. And then faculty want a lot more and staff want a lot more, so you're constantly running, setting up PCs or whatever you have to do in the daily thing. So time is probably one of the hardest things that we have to manage and look at and cost the most. Our style is one is I like to have something that we can work on in a free time, not saying, and we have 3 or 4 workers, so what we do is we can isolate. If somebody wants to work on something, we can isolate that person to work on it at a certain time and basically plan that he's kind of not here, that he's working on something and doesn't get distracted or pulled away. Mike, one of our workers here, he did learn we 3D print a lot of stuff, so we designed the 3D print cases and stuff like that. He went and learned Google SketchUp, where he could design the cases. And we kind of, when he started learning that, we just didn't plan on him going out to service computers or anything else. We filled in for that time, to isolate time that he could actually sit and learn it without having distractions or anything else. So we try to plan something in there where if they want to learn something or do something, that we actually isolate that time for a worker as if it's a lunch break or something, that we don't bother him unless it's an extreme emergency, that they can sit down, spend the time to learn something new or something that will benefit us in the long time. And it doesn't have to benefit us, it's keeping that creative mind going, I think is a big benefit in a law school and IT and stuff like that. So by isolating that time, I think it benefits no matter what, because they get to think and kind of be outside. So it took 3 weeks, 4 weeks, and he learned Google SketchUp pretty well. And now I don't do it really anymore at all. All our cases that we design for our little boxes or any little plastic piece that we need, or if Moot Court wants a prop or anything like that, he'll just go in and design it in Google SketchUp, which is free, and then we print it out and give it to him. So it was a fun project. We didn't know what we had one thing we designed, but we didn't know, you know, on the long term how much we'd use it. But now we have that skill in house, and it was just isolating that time for we could learn it without distracting.
Yeah, we kind of refer to it as our creative play. We like to joke around and get paid to play a lot, and it's actually true. It helps that we have, we're in a school that allows us to do that, encourages it. But a lot of our ideas come from, as we've said a few times, just experimenting. And we will read about a new technology and say, hey, is that something we can use now or maybe down the line? Or that looks like a promising technology, let's keep an eye on it. There may be a need for it. And sometimes these side projects really go nowhere more than just learning how something works. Like we mentioned WebSockets, that's one of the things that we're going to be doing more with. There's a lot of potential to use that. Some of the initial projects may just be test projects, but we take that time to pick up new skills and find out how they would actually work. Sometimes it's just keeping up with blogs, learning what other people are doing, mailing lists. There's also online courses, videos, things like that. There's Coursera, Udacity, Code Academy, Lynda, Code School. A million sources out there. There's tons and tons that just to try something different, to kind of get us out of not thinking in terms of what we already know, but what we can learn and incorporate into new projects. Really, it's just one of those things. If you're in the environment where it's encouraged for you to do that, excellent. If you're not in an environment, you still have to find a way to keep on top of the new things and to play a little bit. I mean, I think that's really where most breakthroughs come from. Gmail is supposedly a side project at Google that somebody was doing on their playtime and things like that. So a lot of these really amazing projects that have come out that we use a lot have actually come from that experimentation.
One of the things I always do is when I first get into work, I usually try to get there a little early. I read. So I'll read the technology blogs or whatever for the first 30 minutes or so, just to see what's going on. It's good for me to do that, and it's good for the university because I can learn a lot and offer a lot more by staying up. So my normal schedule is whenever I get in, the first thing I do is sit down and do a little bit of reading of what's new in technology, what's changing, what's Apple or Microsoft up to, and trying to stay up on it. And that way, if I get asked questions, I can reference it, and it makes faculty know that we're staying up on it. They like to know that.
Do you have a list of favorite blogs?
No, I tend to do like Flipboard or something like that, and then do search terms and Google News. So I kind of flip around a lot. I used to read CNN.tech or /tech, but I don't read them too much. It depends on what usually happens is I get a couple good articles from a website that I like that I hit through something else, and then I tend to go back there until it kind of seems like they're repeating, and then I go to somewhere new.
Of course, Techno is also.
Yeah, Techno, and see what's going on there, of course.
I follow Mashable a lot. I get more ideas from that. It's kind of more overview. Hacker News has a lot of good stuff sometimes. Slashdot. Not so much from Ars Technica.
And every article that we find interesting, we always text or send it to each other or send it to the group.
At all hours of the day, pretty much.
Yeah, I mean, so we're always, the phone's always popping up. Hey, you should read this.
Yeah.
Wouldn't this be neat to do?
Flipboard is probably my favorite to keep up with everything. It's on my iPad, it's on my phone. If I have time, I'll flip through. I have a whole technology section. It's
You set alerts for tech stuff.
Yeah, I actually have that too. Something called Boxcar. We'll give you alerts on like push notifications, things like that for RSS feeds.
And one of the things, when we get a project, the first thing, when we know we have something that we're going to work on, we usually try to sit down in a group and say, what's everybody's idea? So not one person kind of tries to lead it off. And then we kind of get different ideas. How do we make this lid for it doesn't keep on falling off? So we kind of work as a group all together on the same things when we can, at least to get the initial products. Or, when somebody has an idea, I'll say, hey, take that and build it up and let's see what it can be. If we want to add a new switch to our little classroom scenes where we can turn them off and on, I'll ask somebody, hey, research this and tell us what we could do. What are our ideas? And then we'll meet up and say, these are ideas. Let's try to, rate each one. Which one's a little bit better? And then we'll start working on it. So we try to kind of do a little bit of a democracy in there that all of us bring in ideas of what we're going to work on, and then come to a conclusion which ones we want to work on or which way we're going to go for each one of the projects.
Good question.
When you buy off the shelf, part of what you're getting, in theory anyway, is they've done a lot of testing, they've gone through beta, they've done all of that sort of thing, and then you've got service backup that you can call for help. Is there any build project that you've worked on that you felt like, boy, we bit off more than we can chew, this isn't working well? Maybe just talk about what was an example of that.
In my little time or outline here, my next thing is talking about purchasing, how we do, because we do purchase stuff. We'll purchase, and I like to be involved in that because I want to be able to support it. So I'll talk about that. And then our final thing is what we're going to do is walk you through a build project that we did, the video one, because it's one of the big ones, and tell you where we got lost, where we get sidetracked, where it got project creep, and we thought we were going to mess up the whole thing because we tried to add more stuff in. So purchasing, we do purchase stuff. Not long before I got there, each department would kind of purchase their own thing, and then IT would let you know, hey, or they would let IT know, we bought this new calendaring system. Can you help us with it? And it would be, okay, why did we pick this one? What it is? Does it tie into anything? So So one of the things that we've become very active is when a department looks at something, we don't tell them which one to buy, but we tell them which ones can work with our stuff. Hey, we offer this, so if we buy this one, it could also do this and this. So what we're doing again is trying to sway their decision on which product is going to work for the best for them. But in the long run, we let them make the decision because they're the ones that have to live with the consequences, whether it's good or bad. So we work with them a lot on purchasing when we can, when we know what's going on, and we just let them know what else we have that will work with what they're looking at. So if they want to look at a resume tracking system, they would need to know, and they don't think about, is does it tie into our student database to pull our students in there, or they don't have another login? Can we make it into single sign-on? Does it tie into simplicity, so when they apply to one in there, it'll push it to a resume tracking thing to give them reminders and stuff. So when departments often buy, they think of, does this do my resume tracking? They don't think of, does it tie into all the other technology stuff where it's a single product when their students log in and this is what they see. And they don't have to have all these other things and nobody's having to move data from here to there to manage that. And I think that's a big part of purchasing that's often missed. And then you get all these standalone programs that they have to do this here, and then you got to export the data, move it into this system every semester, and that's what we try to avoid. So that was our biggest thing in purchasing, is we're not telling them what to buy, we're guiding them how it would work with everything else in the system where they can make the best decision of what works best for that department and not what we can support the best. We'll find a way to support it, but we need that department working the best. So it's more about the department than it is what we can do with it. So besides that, with purchasing, it's pretty easy because we let them decide. And then once we get it, we'll do everything we can to support it to the max. But we're not making that decision. They're going to make the decision. Building. So what we're going to actually do is walk you through one of our bigger projects that we did. And Jamie's only been at UT for 2 years?
Yes.
So, and it was probably a good portion of the first year I was here that we worked on this project. And it was a video project. And we was trying to solve the problem of the students moving everything from the USB drives back and forth and giving more instant feedback. So we had an issue. Our issue is, how do we make transferring a video more efficient? So the initial idea actually came from here. When we was here, we seen Rutgers video system, we liked that. But there was a couple differences, and then we knew that we didn't know who were in each one of the study rooms, which is a big difference. Is we don't want to just make a video and manage the videos. The university had a system that we could record straight into, but then we'd have to go get the video and move it into this student's folder or make it for this faculty to see it. We want to remove ourselves, once it's deployed, we want to remove ourselves from the system and let them manage it, or we can work on other projects. We don't take ownership in IT at UT. We don't take ownership in a lot of stuff once it's completed. We turn it over. We let them manage it. Because if we don't have to manage email, we don't have to manage the videos moving around, we can do more stuff. That's where we get a lot of our time. We're not possessive. We let them manage all permissions and everything else. I know there's a lot of IT people that doesn't like to give control up. We don't mind giving control up. And that's where we make up a lot of time, is by letting them control it. And if there's an issue, then we'll solve the issue. It does take a lot less time. So, the video project, we didn't want to have to manage it. We didn't want to do that. We started looking at started looking at them. We liked them, but we needed something that we could actually manage. We didn't have to manage video, and that's where kind of all of them fell apart. Is how do we identify who's recording the video, and how do we put that video in a secure location for that student? Any ideas? We know how we did it. I was just wondering how you guys would think about doing it.
Some sort of cloud storage.
Magic fairies?
They're expensive. We look at
We could only afford one, and it wasn't put enough.
it's the import laws.
So,
too much fairy dust.
Undergrads?
A lot of it.
They don't cost anything.
But in your case, Chris, what was your time frame for doing it? I had a different issue as far as time frame when I came aboard.
So when I came in, I didn't have a big time frame. This was an issue that we seen and we wanted to resolve, but we did it in a semester. So we started in October and launched it in January.
Yeah. When I came aboard, it was August, and one of the faculty, was actually a Court of Appeals judge, pushed it, because I was looking for a lecture capture system. We didn't have anything in South Carolina when I came aboard. And the thing was, he wanted to have his students record evidentiary objections, and he wanted it for that semester. So we chose Panopto. And actually that helped because originally we were only going to do a 1-year contract. But immediately when he did it and his students really liked it, they actually then said, can we use this for moot court competition?
You got the students pushing it.
The students pushed it. And then that, I said to, my guys, the dean, I said, Panopto's working. And I said, I think I can get a deal with Panopto if I do a 3-year contract. They talked about it. So one of the things for me was time frame. I would love to have built something on my own, but I had basically 3 or 4 months at most. No, 3 to do it.
And your resources said, and that's where we do
Yeah.
wait, what resources, what's our time frame, and everything else, and that's that cost versus supply evaluation that we try to do when we start looking at it. So anytime we do a project, we research what's out there, we look at it, and then we do that little evaluation. And at the end of this, we'll talk, one thing that we do is we build up a lot of toolkits. So we already have authentication, we already have a lot of stuff, so it gets faster and faster for us to build stuff, because we're not rebuilding everything that we're calling new. So back to the problem. So what we did is we started saying, okay, we can't look at this as a full project, putting all these together. So we started breaking it down into little sections. First thing we need to complete is we need to make sure we can capture video. So we started researching just capturing video. What's our options there? And then we came up with the access cameras and FFmpeg. We could capture video really well. It was easy. We could do it. So instead of just looking at a project, we never look at a project as a giant project. We break it down to as many small pieces as we can and solve each one of the small pieces.
And that's actually one of the first things that Chris drilled in my head is he would come to me with this project, whether it was a video project or anything, and he'd be like, we need this, and I'd be like, oh my God, that's so much, that's so huge, like, and then he'd just like, calm down, just break it down into small tasks. Every little task is really easy when you break it down to the smallest task. And so you really drilled that in my head early on, and things stopped being so overwhelming. And when you can focus on the individual pieces, you start finding solutions for that, and all of those smaller, simpler things add up to a much more complex thing. But it's sometimes you have to step back and not be overwhelmed by it and look at the small pieces. So with the video project, we had the camera, as Chris mentioned. We had to find a way. We were already getting the video through IP, but we had no way to record it and get it into MP4 format, which is what we're using to, or any format for that matter. So we found FFmpeg. We looked at some expensive software to do that. One I think was the military, like it's designed for like missiles or something. Yeah.
But it was like 25 grand.
Yeah. It was cool. We were really impressed by it, but it was overkill and obviously outside of our budget.
Probably an NSA backdoor.
Yeah.
You don't want that at your law school.
But FFmpeg is, it's out there, it's freely available, I believe it's open source, and it did everything that we needed, and it will do conversions and everything in real time that we needed. So that was one aspect of it.
And we test that. So we don't just start, oh, this works and start building that project. So we take that one aspect, we build that one thing just to capture videos, and we test it. Does it capture it? What happens when the network goes down? And we start testing that individual piece of the project. And really look at it as if that's our project.
And then another thing is we had to allow some type of authentication when students come in. How do we get them to where they can record their videos? How does it match up to the user? So that's where we came up with the card swipe. That was actually Chris with our Juno words.
Yeah, we went through a lot of different things. We don't have a room reservation, so that was the first thing we looked at. That's what Camden did, is they know who's in the room because they have to reserve it. So we don't know who's in our room. So we were like, how do we identify the person in our room? And we looked at other products that they could have a USB stuck in the slot, and that USB identified them. And then we're like, well, then we're making a USB for every individual student. And then that's something else they have to remember to carry. So we started thinking about, what does a student have that we identify students with? And we came up with their ID. Every student carries an ID. They almost always have their ID. So we started basing it on their ID. How do we get that number? How do we identify a student off their ID? We've got to swipe it, just like you swipe a door and open a door. So we started out with swipe little cards, and we started out with just computers. Yeah, we get their ID. Is there anything we can match it with an AD or anything like that? And we completed that task. And said, okay, now we got a swipe ID. We can identify them. But we had two requirements. One, we didn't want to have power because there's only 2 outlets in the room and we didn't want to have to run a power for the camera, a power for everything else. So how do we power this device that, that has to run a card swipe? And then what do we connect to the card swipe? Because we didn't want to run a computer in every single room. We wanted something small that just swiped and sent it to a database and reached like that. So I do a lot of tinkering at home and stuff like that, and we came up with the Arduino board. So now we just ran the serial port on a card swipe, so when they swiped it, it sent it to our Arduino board, and the Arduino board would just do a curl statement, which is just an HTTP request basically, to the server. And Arduino boards come with onboard Ethernet or PoE. So now we just plug it in, we can power our little computer, the Arduino, and the card swipe off the network cable. So now we have it where we just card swipe, it sends a little curl statement, authenticates that student and says, now we know who's in the room. And not because the server has it, we can tell the server to do anything. So if that student's in our clinic program, we can say, oh, this is a clinic program and it's a clinic room. So not only do we need to record this video, we need to send it to this clinic video system and say, hey, they're doing a video for clinic, whatever. So that's the way we do it is we break it down to all these little tasks and this little separate thing and we try to complete each little task.
What was the cost per room on that whole project?
So Arduino boards are about $20. The card scan is about, I think we end up getting them for $17 each.
He's truly the guy.
We printed our cases, so Mike took the time to design the case and everything else. The case ended up being probably 30 to 45 cents to print. A lot of time, print slow, but we just hit print and walk away. The little touch screens, so going on to that, we needed a way to stop the video and tell it to start, because it didn't just start the video. We wanted to be able to touch from time. Well, you can buy little touch screens for the Arduino boards that we tied in there that they could type in time, stop the video, start the video, and everything else with these little boards that we can power off the Arduino, so again, no power. Those were a little bit more expensive. I think we ended up getting those for $65. So the whole little control system was around $100.
And are they backstripe or
Make stripe. We just did make stripe ones because our student IDs are make stripes. So that's what we ran with. So it was simple, it's easy, but it was the argument, one of the things we had to do is convince our library to give us money to say, hey, we want to build this thing, but we don't know if it's going to work. So we need just a couple $100 to play with, to try it. And we started building out these individual steps. And at this time, we didn't say this is the project that we're doing. We told them kind of what we're doing, as in we're trying to identify students. Because we didn't want to give them, say we can complete this project, we didn't know if we could do it all yet. So we kind of build it out. They had a general idea what to do, but we try to build it out piece by piece like that. And we could use that for attendance now, if we wanted to. They're cheap. We could do a $100 device in each room. Student comes in, scans his card, and do an attendance device at almost no cost. So, and we wouldn't have to have the screen on that. We could just do a LED, green or red, if it's successful or not. So it would drop it to like a $50 device. So we got that all up and going.
We also had to come up with a web interface. We wanted these videos where people could leave comments, especially the professor, but we wanted them timestamped so that when you watch the video back, those comments would show up and then disappear after a minute or two, otherwise you get overwhelmed by those comments. So the question is, how do we match the comments to the timestamp in the video?
And this is where the project took a lot of project creep and then features here. And this is at one point where we thought we was going to lose the whole thing because we started looking at how long it was going to complete to do all these, and we was like, this is going to take like 2 years to write everything we want in it. So this is one of the places where we started losing a little bit of control of it, and it was more not because we got away from what we should have been doing and saying, we're trying to solve this one issue. Instead, we started doing, oh, it'd be cool if we could do this in it, and this in it, and this in it, and this in it. And we had to dial it back in to say, let's solve our one issue first, and we can build on it later.
Chris came up with the genius idea of, rather than trying to write all this code to match it up to the video time, is just why not tap into closed captioning? And we see the closed captioning to do it, and then...
So HTML5 has 2 standard closed captioning. I think they finally picked one, BTT. It's easy. I mean, it's just one file that has a certain format that automatically pulls from the Java file and plays closed caption anywhere you want to place it.
It's basically a text file.
Yeah.
And so that saved weeks and weeks probably of development time just on that. And at some point, we probably will be revisiting that to make it to work with some other options, but.
And that was the same thing, is what we start out with when we did the thing is, first thing is we get the video authentication for the videos. So we don't house the videos anywhere that the student could just type in a URL to get their video. They're saved on a separate one, and we use, can't remember what it is, that we use, and it actually streams the video to the server, then out to the student, so they can't, they can still download it if they wanted to, but we make it harder. But if you don't have access to, if your permissions are not in the database of that video, you can't see it unless somebody gives it to you or they share it to you. So that was our next thing, is we needed to protect the videos, and we started working on that. How do we protect these videos once we have them saved on there? And then we got the interface built, and then we knew we wanted, one thing we did know we had to do was the captioning. So we broke it down, and first we had to save the caption in the, no, we did play the caption first, just to create a caption file, create it with closed caption. So we didn't care about how students are going to put it in. Our first step is just say, can we play a caption back with video? And that's when we come with closed caption. Then our next step was, can we write this file somewhere when they create it? So we started just breaking it down very little pieces. Okay, we figured out a way that we could write the closed captioning file. It's a standard format, so just write it out, and then when the video plays, it automatically plays into it. And then the final step was, can we put this in a database so we can store these files and not have hundreds of files on there for different videos? And we completed that one, walking through it, saying, okay, we can write it to the database. When they click on a video, it pulls from the database, creates the file instantly, replays it, and then when that screen closes, delete that file so we don't have it there anymore, or recreates it. So our biggest thing, the biggest takeaway is no task is too big. Break it down into tiny, tiny little steps and just complete each one of those steps as if it's a project in itself.
Chris and I kind of have a different approach on how we track those little steps. Chris is more old school. He likes to use a whiteboard in his office with all that. I use Trello. Trello's been great for me, especially when I've worked on projects with people that I don't work in the immediate vicinity with. I work also the director of communications who's on the other side of the building. So that's been a great tool for me to get real-time communication between the two, but in a checklist type format, things like that.
We're going to re-hit one more we talked about because it's in our one. Resources. So, how do you get the resources to do this, or what resources to do this? And I go back to, if you can isolate just an hour or two a week for one of your users to learn something, they'll learn it, and it's pretty quick. And they'll start doing it on these little fun projects and be able to turn something out eventually in the long run that was worth it. So I really say on resources, you say we don't have a developer. Well, somebody that's interested in it or wants to learn it, set that hour aside a day or every other day or once a week that they can sit down and learn a project or learn one of the resources that Bombardo.com or something like that, and learn it. Most people will have an interest if they get into it, if they have the time to do it, that they don't have to spend family time or something like that.
Really quickly, two other websites I found really useful is Quora. I don't know if anybody's familiar with that, but you can go ask experts on any topic at all. There's a lot of technical things in there, but you can ask questions of police officers, and these experts will come in and answer that. Sometimes you'll get founders of tech startups that will answer your technical questions and things like that.
How do you spell that?
Quora. I think it's just .com, and there's an app and things like that. You can follow topics and certain questions, ask questions, things like that. So that's a good place to find ideas on, like I said, answers to specific questions. It's not really like, Stack Exchange is the other one that I use a lot when I'm stuck on something. Quora's not quite down to the specific technical questions, but you can lose a lot of time on Quora because there's a lot of really cool stuff on there.
And don't be scared to ask other people. Something you do, and people have done it before, if somebody at another school or another coworker. Often people wait too long and I think waste a lot of time trying to figure something out that if they would have went and just asked somebody, they would have saved a lot of time and just, hey, this is how you do it. And then learn it as you do it. But don't, we try to spend a lot of time, and if you don't know anything, going and talking to our coworkers or calling somebody at another school, hey, we know you do this, how do you do this piece? So don't be scared to ask other people, that's a big one.
And sometimes some of the best ways to learn is by kind of screwing up, unfortunately. there's been a couple times I did that where Chris has had to come and kind of bail me out a little bit. One time I shut down our website by accident. Well, that was recorded too, right? Awesome. But moving on, after we started building out those tasks, a lot of times we do our testing as we're developing. We'll pull the people in that's interested and have them test the specific elements of the larger project that we're working on. A lot of times it's a lot easier to work in these projects as you're getting the input, as you're developing it. It saves you a lot of time. You can find out what works and doesn't work.
It saves you from that old graphic. I don't know if you've ever seen it. I can't. It's like developer and a user thing, and they're building a swing on a tree. This is what the developer thinks. This is what the user thinks. And by the time they got done, because they don't communicate, they got a half a swing with a tree in the middle of it. Or there's no graphic if you look it up online.
Yeah, the way the marketing sold it.
Yeah.
It's a good graphic.
But working all the way through solves that issue.
Yeah, so the testing, like I said, it's usually something we're ongoing. We find out that there's things that maybe it's not working the way we planned it, or it kind of works, but maybe there's a better way, or the users are confused about it. So we'll iterate a lot of times as we're developing, because we do the ongoing testing and things like that. And a lot of times the tests, well, actually I'm going to touch on this point. So
acceptance. So once it's built and stuff, how do you get your faculty to use it? Because you work with one faculty or something like that. How do you expand it out? And I'll go back to students are our biggest one. And then I do 2 forums a year now at the law school. We show the faculty the new technology that we're putting out. And just to keep them, because a lot of times you find out faculty would use it, but they had no idea it was out there. And just student rises it with them. So we try to do 2 faculty sessions. It's not just faculty, it's open up to the entire law school that come in and we just show them what we're working on, what we build, what we purchased, or what's new in technology that we have to offer for the law school. And we open it up to say, what else do you guys want, or how can we change this at this time that would fit your class or fit your department? So we try to get as much feedback twice a year to see, can we change something that is more used, or can we introduce a little feature on it to do? So we do one in January and one in August. We try to catch them before the semester starts or right at then, but when the faculty are around food is provided, so we get a little bit, even faculty come to us.
We also, the ongoing support and maintenance is probably one of the most important parts. Once the project is, well, it's never entirely done, but we're always very receptive to hearing how we can change it, but also, we get feature requests or, hey, can you change this? And they're not as time sensitive. There's been a few times where we've had a student or a faculty member or staff member basically run down to our offices and be like, this is broken, we need it fixed like right now. And the fact that we can get on that really quickly, the fact that we are very responsive to that, I think builds a lot more trust.
One was with the video project, well, we didn't think about a video plays for an hour, and then 30, 40 minutes in, they go to make a comment, and they've been logged out because there's been no activity, so that session actually expired. They make a comment, that comment's gone, but it didn't get saved, and we had this big issue of, where'd all my comments go? None of them showing up. So that was something we had to do immediately, and we had to plan. We didn't plan for that. We just didn't see it when we developed it. It was the first week after.
If somebody would pause the video, go grab a pizza or something, come back, and then go to make a comment, and they've been logged out, but there was no notification. So yeah, we didn't really anticipate that. We expected people to kind of, and that's a good point, is because we were thinking in terms that we thought how our users were going to use it, and that was actually an oversight on our part of course, students going to take a break through a 1-hour video. We just didn't really think about that. So.
And with the last forum we did with the video project, immediately we got feature requests. So the next thing we're building into it is the faculty wants to be able to pose a question in that video, and the video cannot go on until that question is answered. So that's a new feature we got requested in one of the forums. So that's what we're working on now with the video project is they want these little features, and we report back to them and we'll build them in. So that gives us more buy-in because they will use this because it does what they want. So we add these little features one at a time. And we try not to change it substantially. We add that one feature, test it with them, and then we'll take the next feature on with it. So that's always ongoing maintenance and support. Do you want to talk about tools?
Yeah, we try to build up a toolbox of tools. As a web developer, I'm always constantly doing that. If I have a piece of code that works with any type of programming, but you have a piece of code that you know you're going to use in a different project, maybe it's an authentication thing, it maybe just be a boilerplate that has all of the header information they're going to use. Anything that saves you time. So we have this ongoing toolbox that we're building up. We're constantly, trying to keep it updated. So when we start new projects, we've already got a set of tools we can go ahead and plug in those defaults. One example is we've created the information boards that go throughout the law school. These giant boards, and they show information, and we've got JavaScript pulling in weather and all these things like that. Well, we had a project. It was early in the year, late last year, where we did classroom boards, and they're basically smaller versions of that. So we were able to say, hey, we've already got most of the technology already in place. We're just basically shrinking it down, changing up some things, and that saved us a lot of time that we already had that. Card readers for the video project, we have the technology, we know how it works, we have a lot of the code in place. We can now adapt that quickly to another project, and it saves us a ton of time.
So, and the big thing about it is we try to put it in folders and label it, so we know if we're looking for a certain thing to do, a certain authentication. We'll go to authentication folder. We don't have to look for it. We can just pull out the authentication piece, plug it in. We don't have to rewrite it or anything like that. So just keeping, it comes down to keeping your code organized and searchable, that if you need to do something or repeat something, you can grab it really quick. And as you do that and you get more, your projects get faster and faster, and you can actually complete a lot more in a shorter period of time. So, what questions do we have?
What's the number of your IT staff compared to the number of staff compared to the number of end users that you support? Faculty, staff,
so we have 2 PC tech guys. We have a web guy. We have a class. There's one guy split between classrooms and circulation desks. That classrooms, and we back him up. And then we have one other manager of IT manager that kind of oversees the 2 PC technicians and the server projects and stuff like that. So there's like 4.5 of us, 5.5.
How many staff do you have, like or faculty, where you talk about finding the time to train users that
staff
are interested?
So we do train trainees. So we come try to train one person and let them go back to the department and train, so they can deal with questions and stuff like that. So what we do is with training, we set it up that we have 1 or 2 people from the department come down to us, or we go down to their desk. We do it in an informal setting where they're comfortable. They don't do the classroom teaching or anything like that. We try to show 1 or 2 in their department and let them show each other, and then have them email us. Faculty and staff altogether, I think we're right around 100. That's a pure guess. I haven't been there in a long time. And then we're right over 400 students. I like dependent on the university, so I don't do email at all. There's no point in me doing email. I don't do file storage. There's no point in it. The university offers a great service. Anything I can get from the university that they can do as good as we can, and I don't have to manage it or anything like that, I'll turn it over. With that said, if our users have an issue with one of those things, I want them to call us and we'll take care of it for them. Because we respond a lot quicker, they know us, they're comfortable with us. So anything that we duplicate over the university, I have no problem. I don't need control of it. I will turn it over to the university so I can focus on other things.
Do you host your own web server, or do you have like
we have a host. We pay for a hosting service to do web to host it, and then Jamie builds it. So we do host our own server inside for the portal, and we've gone back and forth about turning that over to the university and run it on one of their servers. But I think the biggest issue we have right now is we save some of our clinic videos over there and stuff like that, and we want to maintain control of them in a secure environment and don't.
That's where we're at.
Yeah, so we kind of get in that little issue. So we still maintain that, but if we didn't have those issues, they run great servers at the university. I would move them over there with no problem.
Do you have an SLA with the university?
Yes.
How much do they charge you?
It depends on what we're getting. It's all online. You can look up UT. They publish it.
We just outsourced a bunch of our stuff to a private company because our guys were charging a lot.
Yeah, ours isn't too bad. Not too bad. What we do is we pay per CPU and then pay memory and then pay space. So we don't pay per host, and we pay how big we want it.
Yeah, ours just changed to that setup, except for they rolled the memory and the CPU together.
Yeah.
You get, I think, 2 gig of memory for one CPU.
Yeah, something
Pay for additional memory. storage. It was
Ours is 200.
when they first did their setup, it was very expensive. And only recently has it come down because they got their cost recovery out of the people, early adopters, and now they've got their equipment set up and it's cheaper.
Server in your basement is cheaper than that.
So I think one big difference is I don't mind giving away control. I am not a person that needs control of the servers or anything like that, and I think that makes a big difference. I've met a lot of IT people that they like control.
I don't like giving away liability. No, I like giving away liability.
I got a question back here.
What led you to get a 3D printer?
What, I'm sorry?
What led you to get a 3D printer?
When we did the video project, because we had these screens and everything else, and we needed something to hold it in a case, and there's nothing commercial you can buy, I have one at home I play with a lot, and we did practice cases with it, and that gave me a business case to argue that if we do this 3D printer, we don't have to find something to do, we'll just design our own. And since then, like the classroom signs that we have on our board, we print the inside of those that hold all our components, our Raspberry Pi and everything in the back of those all together. So we printed quite a bit. We printed all those signs. Mike designed all those, the backing of those.
That's Mike Taylor, that's our 3D guy.
So we try to find projects, and like we open up the moot court if they need any props, plastic pistol, plastic knife for the moot courts and stuff like that. We'll take and design and print them.
This is not TSA friendly, so try it.
So luckily they allowed us to get it, and it turned out pretty well.
How much was it?
We did a MakerBot. I don't know if that was a good choice or not. They're the most commercial one, and they're probably the easiest to print too. They don't take much learning to. That one was about $2,500 to $2,800. There's much cheaper ones, but like I got a Soladoodle at home. If it pauses or stops during the print, you'll pretty much have to restart. The MakerBot has this great software that if it pauses or stops, or the filament unjams or whatever, you can just reload it. It'll pick up right where it left off. Might leave a little marking there, but so we picked that one because it's the easiest to use, and I wasn't paying out of my pocket, so I didn't mind paying a little bit more for that one.
Also, it does push notifications, I think.
Yeah, and so if it fails, it'll send you a text. So we didn't want to sit there and have to watch it or anything. So it'll send you a text or email, and you can go reset jam. It does jam. The MakerBot's having a problem with their nozzles. They give a lot of false jams, and it'll stop and stuff like that. That technology is changing very fast. I love the resin-based laser printers. They're faster, more detailed, but the resin is super expensive, so prints cost you like $5 to $10 compared to cents or pennies. So it'll change a lot. So I don't have one that I'd recommend.
But for what you guys do, the plastic is fine.
Yeah, it works. And even with MakerBot, you can buy multiple ones that take in different types of filament, flexible filament, dissolvable filament, so you can print the middle, you put it in a liquid and you dissolve the middle of it, so like bearings and stuff like that. Neon colors, glow in the dark, but we just use black and white. And we don't print in the finest detail, so you can see a little bit of ridging, but we could if we wanted to, but for what we're using it for, we don't need.
And you said those were 35 cents each?
Yeah, they come out because it tells you how much filament it uses. It tells you how much filament it actually uses, and you know how much a roll is. And they end up being 35 cents we calculated, wasn't it? I can't remember exactly. It was under $1 once we print the case and everything. But I'll say to get there, we printed a lot of practice cases that didn't quite fit the board, or we had to modify the light here, or once we got it together, we didn't like the day the door would thing put on it, so we redesigned the door. So it took us quite a bit to get to the one we wanted. But that was fun stuff. We were get to be inventive and think outside and create something.
So have you thought about turning around using that to make money and sell, make items for other colleges and universities?
We've thought about it.
For student awards? Maybe?
We did turn it, so we have a branch at UT that's UTRF, that we turned it over to them, and they'll kind of take the front if they want to, or we can push it and stuff like that. But we did push it out there for they have it. Did technology disclosure and stuff like that. But for most of my stuff, I'm open. You know, I'll send the 3D prints and stuff like that. So we thought about it. I do another business on the side. I don't like doing businesses. I don't advertise and stuff like that. I like doing the coding. That's why I keep on doing it. And I like creating stuff. So I don't usually do it as a moneymaker. So, and we got new projects coming up that we looked at, and you know, we like clickers. On and off. I hate having to buy clickers, so we use Plickers. I don't know if anybody has seen Plickers. Plickers, you print out 42 cards, or I think it's 42, and it's a special design. It has an A, B, C, and D, and it's a free app for your iPhone. So if you hold up your card and I scan the audience, it'll tell me which each person answered. So we can just print out these for the students, cut them out, laminate them, and they use them all semester. It's free. You download the app free, and for this room, it'll read everybody in this room. So you just ask them a question, it registers, it shows their answer over their head. It's really neat.
And it focuses pretty well at the distance, the
yeah,
somebody's in the back.
Yeah, it'll get most of our large classrooms, probably about 4 rows from the back. It won't do a lot. But in this classroom here, it would read everybody that's in here. And it's called a Plickers. Free app, you can download it. P-L-I-C-K-E-R-S. We're looking at another one that we like the Plickers and we like that, but now we want to have that real time on video. So we want to add in our video project that if somebody's watching it, they can slide up and down whether they like it. I did a presentation on something similar a couple years ago, but we want that wireless so we can move it to any room. And as they're watching a video presentation, they can, you know, or an oral argument, they can slide up and down and say how much you like it. Students watch it back, and they get real time feedback on their oral arguments. You know, right now a juror talks back and says, yeah, somewhere I didn't quite agree with them, but you don't know really where you lost that juror. What we want to do is have it where a student can see real-time feedback when they watch it back and they got grasped. All of a sudden this guy doesn't like it. In the video, what am I saying? Why did I lose him right there? And we can code each little device with, is a female, male holding it, what's the age range, and stuff like that, so they could get all this neat data feedback on the oral argument. But when I said this, all the females completely left me, so I got to watch what I say at that time. So we're starting with that, is we're starting to break down that project. What do we need to do? We need a slider. We need a little chip that's going to talk to the network. We need the report. We need the power. And we're just starting on that one. If we do well, maybe we'll present it next year what that one is. So we say, wouldn't it be cool to do? And then we start doing it. Other questions?
Do you guys have a blog or anything where you talk about all these little projects that we could look at through the year?
You know,
I love these sessions. And I'm writing down furiously every little thing you say. It'd be nice if you guys had a blog we could just look at.
Or use the Cali Slack. You could use the Cali Slack for that.
I got a lot of great, but I hate writing. I hate writing. I'm not a very good writer. And so I'm not a good person. Jamie likes writing. He'd probably be a good blogger. Jamie. Push him to do it.
We actually do journalism, so that's... yeah, we could look into that. We never really, I don't think we've had time to really consider it much. We were so busy.
Really asked for it.
But yeah, that's a great idea. And yeah, I think we can do that.
I have a WordPress.
You need to hire someone from CALIcon15.
I'm getting started on blogging. We'll just get you going.
So we love being inventors, and what can we do? And isolating that time to do it, to try it. And we understand we're going to fail at times. You know, and that's what you got to let people know. It's not always going to work. So you don't lose being able to do it next time. You screwed up last time, you can't do it. Our faculty, our staff, and our deans know that every project we do is not going to work. But the ones that do are great.
What was the reception to the card swipe video project?
Oh, they love it.
Yeah.
They love it. In fact, we did 5 of them to start out with, and then they came back and said, hey, can you put in all the rooms? And then the clinic came up and said, hey, can we do this in the interview room so we don't have to do this DVD? And then we look, and then we say, okay, clinic is slightly different, so how do we modify this to fit a clinic setting? Yeah. Students may not have their ID, and we don't want a client waiting to say, I need to go get my ID. So we're changing it that the student can type in their ID.
Just a little punch pad.
Yeah, it's the same thing, they put the time in, but now they'll hit a little button and say, here's my ID. And that's where we started that. So if a student does it in a room down there, we know it's a clinic video, so it automatically adds the clinic faculty permissions. So we get a lot of feedback, and they say, hey, can we do this? And that's building that trust and getting a track record of a couple working. They come back to me and ask me more. So it's gone really well. Yeah, we even had a vendor came in and asked about it.
The camera vendor actually was really impressed with it too.
Did you say Axis camera?
We use Axis cameras, because when we came and did it, they told us it would synchronize audio and video, so we stuck with them, we like the cameras. And you can turn it up to 1080 if you want, or you can turn it back down. So we don't turn it up often, but if we needed facial expressions in extreme detail, we could. 720p is fine, and it's not space confined. We're quite a bit over, so. Thank you.